Good day, grade 9 learners. This is Teacher Lester, aka Sir Les, and I welcome you all to another fun and meaningful learning. If you are new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit notification bell for you to be updated of new uploaded videos. For today's lesson, we will be talking about a topic in music, and this is discussed in quarter 2, and the lesson is all about music of the classical period. Without further ado, let's get this discussion started. For us to be guided with the discussion for today, these are the most essential learning competencies. The learner describes musical elements of given classical pieces, explains the performance practice, setting, composition, role of composers or performers and audience during classical period, relates classical music to other art forms and its history within the era, and performs selected music from the classical period. From our topic, classical music, we will be dealing with 4 subtopics. Subtopic 1, definition of classical music. Subtopic 2, characteristics, elements, forms, and musical styles of classical music. Subtopic 3, composers and their compositions, and subtopic 4, the relevance of classical music to arts, historical events, and contemporary arts. For better understanding of the lesson, let us define classical period first. Classical period existed in the year 1750 and then ended up in the year 1820. The classical era, also called the Age of Reason, is the period from 1750 to 1820 as mentioned. The cultural life was dominated by the aristocracy as patrons of musicians and artists generally influenced the arts. Classical denotes conformity with the principles and characteristics of ancient Greek and Roman literature and art, which were formal, elegant, simple, freed, and dignified. Here are the characteristics of classical music. First, harmony and texture is homophonic in general. Second, the dynamics of loud and soft was clearly shown through the extensive use of crescendo and decrescendo or diminuendo. And third, a style of broken chord accompaniment called Alberto bass was practiced. To understand more the characteristics of classical music, let us review the elements of music. Melody is a combination of pitch and rhythm. Tempo is the speed at which a passage of music is or should be played. Dynamics refers to the volume of a sound or tone. Texture is homophonic if melody accompanied by chord, and pitch is the rate of vibrations producing it, the degree of highness or lowness of a tone. Now, let's discuss the instrumental forms of the classical period. First is the sonata. Sonata is a multi-movement work for solo instrument. Sonata came from the word sonare, which means to make a sound. Second is the sonata allegro form, which is the most important form that developed during the classical era. It consists of 3 distinct sections, which are exposition, development, and recapitulation. Third instrumental form of the classical period is the concerto. Concerto is a multi-movement work designed for an instrumental soloist and orchestra. It is a classical form of music which has 3 movements: fast, slow, and fast. The fourth one is symphony. Symphony is a multi-movement work for orchestra. It is generally in 4 movements, namely fast, slow, medium, and fast. Next to discuss is the vocal music of the classical period. Vocal music of the classical period consists of opera. Opera is a drama set to music where singers and musicians perform in a theatrical setting. Classical opera has 2 types. These are opera seria, or in English, serious opera, which is usually implies heroic or tragic drama that employs mythological characters. The second one is opera buffa, which is in English, comic opera. It is in Italy that is full of fun, an opera with humorous plot and usually with a happy ending. These are the musical styles of classical music. First, Alberti bass. Alberti bass is a special type of broken chord accompaniment where the chord is played in this order: lowest note to highest note to middle note to highest note, then repeats the pattern to create a smooth, sustained, flowing sound. Second one is Allegro, which is quickly and brisk, lively in manner. Third one is Largo, which is style of music in the classical period, which is very slow in tempo. And we have Suite, which is a collection of short musical pieces in order to create larger work. Let us now proceed to the composers and their compositions. First composer of the classical period was Franz Joseph Haydn. He is one of the most prominent composers of the classical period. His life is described as rags to riches story. He was named Father of the Symphony. His famous works include 104 symphonies, 60 piano sonatas, 68 string quartets, some masses and oratorios, and 25 operas, 10 lost. Most of his symphonies have nicknames such as Surprise, Symphony, The Clock, The Military. He also wrote chamber piano music and choral works. How can we forget about Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart? He is a child prodigy and the most amazing genius in musical history. He experimented in all kinds of music and composed over 700 works. He composed wonderful concertos, symphonies, and opera such as The Marriage of Figaro in 1786, Don Giovanni 1789, and The Magic Flute, which became popular. Other known works were Ein klein Nachtmusik, Symphony No. 40 in G major, and Sonata No. 11 in a major K311. Another prominent composer of the classical period was Ludwig van Beethoven. He was the composer who bridged the late classical era and the early romantic era. He was a talented pianist and a composer. His famous compositions include 32 piano sonatas, 21 set of variations, 9 symphonies, 5 concertos for piano, 16 string quartets, and choral music. His works include the Piano Concerto No. 5, known as Emperor, Missa Solemnis in 1818 to 1823, and Opera Fidelio in 1805. His known symphonies are Symphony No. 3 or Eroica, No. 5, No. 6 or The Pastoral, and No. 9, The Choral, which adds voices to the orchestra. Now let's compare classical music to related art forms. In the middle of the 18th century, Europe began to move toward a new style in architecture, literature, and the arts known as classicism. It was also pushed forward by changes in the economic order and in social structure. Instrumental music was patronized primarily by the nobility. And these are the related historical events. First is French Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars. Second is the American Declaration of Independence in 1776. And third, the American Revolution. And it's also just right to know the relevance of classical music to contemporary art forms. First, works of Haydn, Mozart, and Beethoven are still popular today. Their compositions are now commonly used as music to animated series of popular cartoon companies such as Looney Tunes, Warner Brothers, 20th Century Fox, Pixar, etc. Beethoven's music was used in one of the films for children. And lastly, Little Einstein's animated series also features the music of the great composers Beethoven, Haydn, and Mozart. And that ends the simple but meaningful adventure on the music of the classical period. For your performance task, you may work on your own or with a partner. Make less than 1 minute commercial or advertisement for any relevant product. Downloaded video from YT is allowed. Classical music should be used as background music. At the end of the video, you should indicate the title of the classical music used. Submit your output on the Google Classroom after. Thank you so much, grade 9 learners, and I hope that you enjoyed and learned a lot from the lesson. Again, if you are new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for you to be updated of new uploaded videos. This has been Sir Lester saying, let's dream and make it happen. That's all for today, and goodbye!